So let's talk about chapter 12. This part 2 of the book. He says, is there hope for the dying church? And here's 12 responses that he shares with us. And in this 12th chapter, it's headed, My Church Has Symptoms of Sickness, and 4 responses. Now remember, he broke this down. He said there's 10% of churches that are healthy, 40% of churches that are sick, 40% of churches that are very sick, very unhealthy, and that are dying, and 10% that are dying and dead. He says at the very end of this first paragraph, he said, it's hard to be bright and cheerful when you are talking about decay, dying, and death. Nobody likes to talk about death. Nobody likes to talk about dying. Nobody, at least that I know of up to this point in time, has had a terrific time thinking that here at Lutheran Church of the Master, we're decaying and dying. We all know it. We've hopefully have stopped denying it. But we're not taking great joy in having to say it out loud. At least I hope not. He says, I will address 3 types of churches. Churches that have symptoms of sickness, very sick churches, and dying churches. And here's this little percentage. 10% are healthy, 40% have symptoms of sickness, 40% are very sick, and 10% are dying. He said of the churches that fit this first category, symptoms of sickness, he said one of the signs that sickness might be taking hold includes a pervasive attitude in the church that the best days are in the past. Very few would recognize the present in that light. I'm pretty sure that's where we're at, you're at. If I ask you, if you've been here for a year, you'd tell me of 1988 or 1994 or sometime of some event that happened years ago. What we need to do is we should say, boy, tomorrow is our best day coming. The best day is yet ahead of us. He says churches with symptoms of sickness are likely to have declined some in worship attendance over the past 5 years. So if there's been some sickness, they're starting to decline. They're starting to see that. Now, we've had major decline. He said the church is moving from an outward focus to an inward focus. See, as soon as we start losing people and people start moving away and people start quitting church, we start looking at ourselves because we're in survival mode. We want to survive. We no longer are thriving, but we are surviving. He says most of these churches do not have a clear plan for making disciples. I've said this before, I'll say it again. It's about relationships. It's not about programs. It's about doing what Jesus told us to do. If we'll get back to doing what Jesus told us to do, we will find health start coming back in this church. If we stay focused on the things that we have been focused on, we'll still continue to die and waste away. He says the church has a lot of program and ministry clutter. There is much busyness and activity, but a great deal of it has no meaningful purpose. Most of these activities contribute little or nothing to the making of disciples. The primary reason these programs and ministries are continued is simply because that's the way we've always done it. That's the way we've done it before. So here are his 4 areas that he talks about, 4 responses. He says the first one, pray that God will open the eyes of the leadership and members for opportunities to reach into the community where the church is located. We need to have open eyes. God, show me what you see. I know what I see, God, but show me what you see. And then how I'm supposed to respond to that. The second one, take an honest audit of how church members spend their time being involved. Sometimes it's good ministry, there's nothing wrong with it, but we're taking up space and we're wasting time. It's non-relevant ministry. It's not bad ministry, it's just that it doesn't have any relevance anymore. We've outgrown it. It's not needed anymore. And the problem is when you're involved in it and it's your ministry, you're going to protect it to the last breath. That's human nature. But ask yourself, is it still relevant? And a lot of what churches do today is not relevant. The third one, take an audit of how the church spends its money. Where do we spend our money? Who do we give it to? How do we invest it? That's a big question. Fourth one, make specific plans to minister and to evangelize your community. And so here that's a solution. Make specific plans to evangelize and do ministry in this community. And we have to find ways to meet this community. And it's not necessarily going to be easy, and it might not be comfortable or expedient. But if we want to stay alive, we're still going to need to do it. Now, would you take some moments and talk with your brothers and sisters in your small group on this whole topic of what's happening and where do we go and what do we do with this? Have a great conversation.